Making news around the nation. If you think you're hearing the F word a lot more these days from politicians, you're not alone. Some people may be dismayed, but others seem to consider vulgar language a sign of authenticity. Here's 17's Robert Price to try to sort it out.
It was 8 years ago that President Trump, the first-term version, referred to certain African nations as S-word hole countries, and depending on their level of tolerance for such things, some people cackled, some people clutched their pearls, some people cheered. The media struggled over whether to quote the president. It's the president. You can always quote the president, right? The Associated Press decided to report Trump's language verbatim, without euphemisms or dashes. The AP is not opening the floodgate to the use of that word, its variations, or other obscenities. Public attitudes toward coarse language, the AP said, do appear to be changing under the influence of novels, movies, and TV shows. Ah, for those days of innocence. The narrative has changed, and it now starts with an F. Lisa Kimball Edmonston has written extensively about manners and courtesy.
We have become a much more casual society. Casual meaning what people wear to a place of worship on Sunday or what they'll wear on an airplane. And conversely, they've become much more casual, borderline crude with their language.
Last November, Trump emphatically dropped an F-bomb on camera while expressing frustration that Israel and Iran had violated a ceasefire he had just finished celebrating. It wasn't the first time. The darling of the Christian right lobbed an F grenade into a 2016 rally in New Hampshire and another during a 2022 rally in Alaska. Trump is not the first president to have trashed his thesaurus in favor of the versatile but vulgar verb. Joe Biden did, Richard Nixon did, Harry Truman did, even Jimmy Carter did. Just not nearly as often, not nearly as publicly, and not nearly with as much gusto. The fact is, Trump's vulgarity comes off as authentic and even endearing to many voters. For the most part, the public president and the private president are the same guy. The question is, how does he get away with it when some don't? Maybe because we're undergoing a shift in public morality, or maybe Trump is just a different cat. There was mild outrage over the lapel pin that Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib wore to Trump's State of the Union address last month. F, ICE, it read, only it used the real word. We've seen that slogan on television more than a few times on protest signs and elsewhere, so it's not like it's out of nowhere. John Hart, a semi-retired journalist and educator, has made T-shirts with colorfully explicit language a part of his daily wardrobe.
I would love to see my president and my political leaders back to some degree of civility. You know, I've always been a Democrat, but you know, you never heard George Bush saying stuff like that. You never heard Ronald Reagan saying things like that. I hope it's a blip.
But then last month, Alyssa Liu won the U.S. women's first individual figure skating gold at the Winter Games since 2002 and cut loose with a vulgar outburst of joy. "That's what I'm effing talking about," she yelled into the camera. Except she used the real word. And her penalty? Invitations to daytime talk shows. But California gubernatorial candidate Katie Porter, caught on camera ordering an employee to get out of my effing shot, took a hit, dropping overnight from first in the polls last October, when the 5-year-old video was leaked, to fifth this week, which proves nothing concrete, but it's undeniable that we've entered a more accepting place as a nation with regard to public vulgarity. Uncomfortable with that? Well, you can just go, well, never mind. We're not ready for that yet, thankfully. In Bakersfield, Robert Price, 17 News.